Hello, Foxy Finds here, and welcome back to Foxy Shiny Quest. I have a special video for you today, one that I've been wanting to do for quite some time. There's one particular Pokemon that I've been wanting to show for a while, but I've had to wait for it to be in an outbreak. And in Pokemon Scarlet, I found it. Right at the start of the day too, which gave me so much time to do the shiny hunting, and well, I shouldn't get too far ahead of myself. Let's jump right into the encounter, shall we? And here we have it, Eevee. A little background on this Pokemon. Eevee canonically has unstable DNA. This allows this Pokemon to adapt to its environment, and quite drastically I might add. When the circumstances are right, this Pokemon will evolve into one of several Pokemon, depending on the specifics of the circumstance. But for now, let's just talk about Eevee. When this Pokemon was introduced in Generation 1, it was a gift Pokemon. You only received one of them. Unless you traded, you had to choose which one of its evolutions you wanted. At the time, you had 3 options. We'll get into those later. In Pokemon Yellow, you are about to receive an Eevee as your main Pokemon when your rival jumps in and takes it before you can, resulting in you being given an untrained Pikachu. When the Kanto region was revisited in Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee, we see the return of Eevee and Pikachu as starters, except in Let's Go Eevee, as the name implies, you actually receive an Eevee. This Eevee is quite special. It learns several moves that normally can't be learned. It can also effectively use the HM replacements for that game. It cannot evolve or be transferred out of the game. Eevee as a whole has also been owned by several main characters in the Pokemon anime as well, one of which representing this special Eevee. In Generation 1, Eevee could only be evolved using evolutionary stones. If you used a water stone on it, you got a Vaporeon. This Pokemon is almost entirely made of water. When in water, it can be incredibly hard to hit. Having access to Ice-type moves and defensive moves like Acid Armor, as well as having a high HP stat, this Pokemon is a tough opponent. In the anime, when this Pokemon was introduced, its owner was named Rainier. In Pokemon Go, if you name an Eevee this name, it'll evolve into a Vaporeon. All you need is the 25 candy to evolve it. That's all. But this naming trick only works once. Each other evolution also has a name, but we will get to those as we go. If you use a Thunderstone on an Eevee, you will receive a Jolteon. Its fur is like sharp needles, which it can use both offensively and defensively. This Pokemon gets access to Pin Missile, giving it advantage against Psychic-type Pokemon, which were notoriously overpowered in Generation 1. It also has access to Double Kick, which is really good against Normal-type, which only has one weakness. It, unfortunately, doesn't have the best attack stat to make use of either of these. However, it has a high speed, which can boost its crit chance and make up for it. In the episode it was introduced, its owner was named Sparky. Like Vaporeon, you can use this name to evolve an Eevee in Pokemon Go just once. Using a Firestone on Eevee will get you a Flareon. This Pokemon was oddly given a high attack stat, despite all Fire-type attacks using the special stat in these games. Luckily, it does have a decent special stat as well. Learning attacks such as Fire Spin allows you to lock your opponent in place. While handy, its moveset was a bit more limited than the other counterparts of Generation 1. Like the other evolutions, this Pokemon was originally owned by a trainer by the name of Pyro. You can use this name to evolve your Pokemon up in Pokemon Go. Now, for simplicity's sake, I'm going to be referring to Eevee and its evolutions collectively as Eeveelutions, a fan term that became semi-official all the way back in Generation 2 in the Pokemon Stadium 2 guidebook. It is still mostly a fan term. On a side note, most languages have an equivalent to this term, combining Eevee's name with evolution, but others, such as Japan, say their version of EVs, referring to multiple of the lower form. Another aside, Vaporeon, Jolteon, and Flareon are blue, yellow, and red-ish, respectively. Their shinies are purple, green, and orange, respectively. Effectively, they took each of these Pokemon and just moved it one spot on a simple color wheel. When Generation 2 came out, we found out we were getting brand new evolutions. People were really excited, and I can't say Game Freak disappointed. Espeon is an elegant, feline-esque Pokemon, even having its tail split at the end, likely taking inspiration from the yokai Nekomata. Sorry if I butchered that name. To get an Espeon, you just need to train an Eevee's friendship stat high enough and level it up when it's in the daytime. Friendship is increased by walking, winning gym battles with it in your party, leveling up, and a whole host of other things. For me, I caught this Pokemon in a luxury ball, and then I also gave it a Soothe Bell. Each of these doubles the friendship gained. With that 4 times increase, I just gave it a little candy, it leveled up, and that was enough to get me an Espeon. In the Johto games and the anime, there is a group of trainers known as the Kimono Girls. These characters put on shows and use evolutions. In the anime, one of these uses an Espeon. This trainer's name is Sakura. This is the name that you can name your Eevee in Pokemon Go to evolve it up to Espeon without even it needing to be daytime or meeting the Hearts requirement. Now, if instead you wanted to evolve your Eevee with friendship at night, you get Umbreon. Once again, I'm going to catch this in a luxury ball to double my friendship gains. In Pokemon Gold's Pokédex entry, it reads, "When agitated, this Pokemon protects itself by spraying poisonous sweat from its pores." Which is quite interesting because this Pokemon is Dark type, not Poison type. This bit of information seems to be left over from the original plan for this Pokemon to be Poison type. This idea was speculated for years, up until the Space World demo for Generation 2 surfaced. The data inside revealed that this was indeed the case. In an official poll in 2020, Umbreon was found to be the most liked evolution, the most liked Gen 2 Pokemon, and overall the 5th most liked Pokemon by the fans. In Pokemon Go, you can evolve this by naming it Teemo. Teemo? Teemo. This is named after one of the anime's Kimono Girls, who also uses Umbreon. So this is very important. If you want to evolve your Eevee into either Espeon or Umbreon, they cannot know any Fairy-type moves. Otherwise, the evolution won't work. I'll go over why this is the case later. Back to that Space World demo though. There were 2 planned evolutionary stones that never made it into the games. The Heart Stone, which would have evolved Eevee into Espeon, and the Poison Stone, which would have evolved Eevee into Umbreon. Sadly, we didn't even get official art of either of these, at least not that I could find. In Generation 4, they decided to add 2 more evolutions. If you use a Leaf Stone on an Eevee, you get Leafeon. Alternatively, if you bring your Eevee to a Moss Rock and level it up, it will also evolve. You are required to use a Moss Rock prior to Generation 8, though, interestingly, it appears that Leafeon was intended to have appeared way back in Generation 2, although with a different name, and you would have used a Leaf Stone to evolve it back then. Thanks again, Space World demo. In Generation 7, there were a group of trainers simply called Eevee users. They were all older individuals that used the various evolutions, except the Leafeon trainer, who looks surprisingly young, states that she will use money and medicine to look as young as possible. This trainer's name is Linnea, which is the name that you use to evolve Eevee in Pokemon Go up to a Leafeon without using a grassy lure. If you use an Ice Stone on Eevee or find an Ice Rock to level it up, you will get a Glaceon. In Generation 4, the Moss Rock was found pretty early in the game, before you even got access to Eevee. The Ice Rock, however, was much later. While Leafeon seems like a strange choice to evolve with a random rock in the world, the Ice Stone did not exist yet, so having an Ice Rock kind of made sense. It wouldn't be for several generations that the Ice Rock stopped being necessary and the Ice Stone was added. It was really cool to see new evolutions added, but outside of their evolutionary method, which was later removed, there's not much else to say about these two. Don't get me wrong, Generation 4 evolutions are solid, but for trivia, they are a little bit lacking compared to the others. In Pokemon Go, it's named after Rhea, the Glaceon's Eevee user. I guess a small additional note about Generation 4, it was the first games where you could just catch an Eevee. There was a location that had a very rich person that says in his backyard he finds some particularly cute Pokemon. It sort of indicated that he doesn't actually have these, and he tells his butler to go buy a whole bunch and release them back there. But hey, they're wild Pokemon you can catch just the same. Finally, we have our last and 9th Pokemon, Sylveon. Once again, Eevee will evolve when it has a high friendship value, but to get this last evolution, it must know a fairy type move. This is why the previous generations had to not have a fairy type move, because Sylveon's evolution takes priority. This Pokemon initially had a much more complicated way of evolving. In Generation 6, they added Affection. This stat was separate from Friendship, but they did have some similar qualities. Having a high Affection value allowed your Pokemon to have a higher critical hit chance, the chance of surviving a hit it would have fainted from, or recovering from a status condition in battle. But for Eevee, this was also a requirement to evolve up to Sylveon, alongside also needing a fairy type move, but those weren't too hard to get for Eevee. After 2 generations, they combined Friendship and Affection into one stat and tied Eevee's evolution to Friendship with the fairy type move. Sylveon was first announced without its type being revealed. Many people speculated on what its typing could be, and also wondered if there was going to be a second evolution to pair with it. Turns out, this Pokemon was used to showcase the brand new fairy type. This was a huge change to the games, where dragon type Pokemon were overpowered and steel and poison types were almost never offensively used. Sylveon became the face of fairy type Pokemon. Cute to many, yet unsettling to some. Those eyes look so different from the others. Those ribbons that are made out of skin. Look at how cool its shiny is. For this catch, I used a Friend Ball, which sets the friendship to a high value right from the start. I only had one of these, so I made sure to save it for Sylveon. I combined it with the Soothe Bell, and it only took a couple levels to evolve it up. Like the last two, this Pokemon's Pokemon Go evolution name comes from the Eevee users. This time, it's the granddaughter of the original user, who apparently was trained by the previously mentioned Sakura. Her name, and the one that you give to Eevee, is Kira. I really want to stress this, you want to save this for an Eevee that you want to evolve up more than just a regular Pokemon. Sylveon is a pain to evolve. You need to get 70 hearts with it as your buddy. The fastest alternative is to have Eevee as your buddy, use a Poffin, walk 6 kilometers, play with it in the AR mode, battle with it in your party 3 times, take a snapshot of it, visit a Pokestop that you have never been to yet, and follow a route. All with it in your party and active. This will roughly give you a third of the needed hearts. So, yeah, save the naming convention for a shiny Eevee or one with really good stats. That's my recommendation anyway. A little behind the scenes look here, I found out that this Eevee had an outbreak at 3 o'clock in the morning. This hunt took me hours to complete, while still trying to get my daily stuff done. It was really stressful at the end too, because I was really crunching for time. I got the last one literally 3 minutes before midnight, which is when the outbreak would have just ended, and I would have lost my chance of catching this last Pokemon as easily, at least. I would have invested quite a bit of time in getting another outbreak, but I don't know how long that would have taken, and this video definitely would not be out as soon as it is, which is admittedly already later than I wanted. Well, that's all the time I have for this video. I don't feel like I need to pad out this outro for how long this video was. I'm signing off. I need some sleep. Bye. Oh. Happy hunting.